You're welcome back. And now we take you to our big story. In the early hours of this week, residents of part of Sokoto State were jolted awake by the sound of explosions in the sky. Nigeria has now confirmed that many first heard only a rumor, but shockwaves. Joint airstrikes carried out with the United States targeting camps linked to Islamic State, also known as ISIS, operating in Nigeria's northwest. Now, according to Nigerian authorities and the United States Africa Command, the strikes hit at least 2 ISIS-linked camps, described as operational hubs used for planning attacks, training fighters, and coordinating logistics. Officials insist strikes were precise, intelligence-led, and recorded no civilian casualties. But the development has raised serious questions.
Questions are, why Sokoto? Why now? What does this mean for Nigeria's sovereignty, its counter-terrorism strategy, and also security in the northeast, a region already battling banditry, kidnappings, and insurgent violence? And as the United States signals that more strikes could follow, Nigerians are asking whether this marks a new phase in the war against terrorism or a troubling escalation. Now, this morning on our big story, we break it all down with security expert, and he's joining us now already. Dr. Dennis Amakri is joining us. He's a security analyst, and of course, you know, he's a big friend of the house here. We always like to have him when it has to do with security matters, especially when there's a tinge of geopolitics inside of it. Dr. Amakri, you're welcome. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Straight ahead, let me go and ask what your stance is on the U.S.-Nigeria airstrikes in Sokoto. What do you think so far?
Good morning. It has happened, and of course we have a lot of opinions, flying around. But number one, most importantly, it shows that we had these Nigeria being classified as a country of particular concern, and that particular tag, I think, has been, watered down now, because we can see that the United States itself is having, some kind of cooperation with the Nigerian government. And then, of course, that strike in Sokoto that we had. And, of course, the major problem is we are going to be sharing the problems we have. Our own is bandits and terrorists. And of course, the United States also have one of the most important national interests, which is fighting terrorism wherever it happens in the world. So I think we have the same objective.
Now, Doctor, it's been said that ISIS tends to be more affiliated with the North, but taking into consideration that these strikes were done within Nigeria, what does this tell us about the landscape of terrorism in Nigeria and the affiliation with the North? And ISIS, of course, finding expression here.
Yeah, okay. I think we need to do some definitions here. We have Boko Haram, which is affiliated to Al-Qaeda. And then, of course, the breakaway faction is called ISWAP. That's in the northeast. And in the northwest, we have Lakurawas. And, of course, Lakurawa are the people who migrated into Nigeria from the Sahel. In fact, their original name is ISSP, which is Islamic State in the Sahel province, and they are called Lakurawas. Now, the Lakurawas, they are jihadists, actually, and they've chosen to be around Sokoto because they believe strongly in the 19th century ideology of Uthman and Fodio. And they've been in Sokoto, and they have been accommodated because in some local governments, they are actually operating as part of the government. And then, of course, before they were friendly, and later they started taking hostages and stuff like that. But this particular attack, like you showed earlier, in the Baoni, I don't know how to pronounce that, forest in Sokoto State. That's where their concentration was, and the attack was targeted at that place.
Dr. Makre, we heard plenty about the firing of these missiles. We haven't heard much about the results. Why that communication is lacking is, well, I'd like to know exactly. But we also had reports from yesterday that these targets were not actual targets, that they were just farmlands. At least 2 or 3 of these, where we had our reporters at, showed that there was no target in sight or nothing that would indicate that there was even any operation happening there. That's on one side. Let's then look at how this affects the neighbors. This is Sokoto, and this is where the Sahel belt actually starts. What signal does this send to our neighbors, especially those in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Niger, that are under military rule? Is this a strategic posturing by the United States in any way, shape, or form? And what does that portend to us as Nigerians and our relationship with these neighbors?
Well, initial analysis have shown that, number one, the attack was symbolic, because some people were asking why Sokoto. And of course, I've told you the presence of Lakura was there. And then, of course, it's symbolic in the sense of people around that area knowing that the reach of the United States can get to anybody. It doesn't matter where you are. And then, of course, some people say that the attack was, it didn't hit its target. It did, because the target was the Boni Forest, where a lot of the terrorists were hiding or living. So they are still doing a damage assessment. And after the battle damage assessment with the United States, AFRICOM, and the Nigerian government, then we'll know actually exactly how many people, were involved, how many casualties that we have. And of course, the other areas of Tangasa and Jabo, there might be fallout there, but thank God, no civilian casualties. But we should also know that some of these guys were using human shield. They were using the people as human shield. The attacks, the strikes were very, very precise, and they are not just shot to destroy civilian population.
Now, Dr. Makre, I wanted to take you on something that you said from earlier regarding the Lakurawas and how they operate. You mentioned human shield, and this is exactly what we have come to know about how they operate in these states, that they actually embed themselves into communities, even sometimes serving as governance there. So a strike on the Lakurawas would often mean that you would have civilian casualties. Doesn't this worry the Nigerian government or the US itself? If there are hubs inside of the forest, well, then that makes a bit of sense. But I'd like you to talk about that, and still about the relationship between Nigeria and the Sahel nations with these airstrikes happening so close to their door mouths.
Okay. Well, the thing is that in situations like this, you can have collateral damages. You cannot avoid that, because no matter how precise the attack the strike will be, these guys have gathered, human shield around themselves. Remember, immediately President Trump of the United States announced that there is going to be a strike in Nigeria. What did they do? They went and started kidnapping school children. We didn't have this before. But suddenly, after that announcement, they went to Papiri, they went to other places and gathered, school children that they surrounded themselves with. Because the idea is that, okay, if you want to hit me, come and hit me, and then we'll use these people. But the Bona Forest is their base. That's where they do all their things, and even when they kidnap people, they take it into that forest. But some of them are also spread out in the local governments. So I think there is a lot of intelligence work there to make sure that civilian casualties are strongly minimized.
Dr. Amakri, I'd like to ask, for my own benefit, President Donald Trump mentioned that according to them, this was a success, and I think I heard you echo it a little bit as well to say the targets were met and it was a success. My question for you, for someone like myself, who's watching in Nigeria, how would we measure success in this instance? What do we say success is? Because like you said, we have yet to be given information on the number of casualties, so we don't know what was hit, how many were hit. And I mean, echoing on what Amazino said as well, was this a hit that wanted to rattle the terrorists, or I'm trying to understand what we measure as success in this regard. Can you just break that down for me?
Yes, success can be measured in different ways. The first apparent one is, following the battle damage assessment, where the target was, hit, and that is in the forest. That one was hit. So that is a success. Number two, it is also giving a situation of deterrence. For other, what do they call them? Terrorists, either in Nigeria or outside. And then, of course, like I said earlier, the Sokoto is very, very unique. The reason for Sokoto, because if you look at the map over there, you'll find out that where do they come in? They come in from the Sahel, Niger Republic, and then, of course, Benin Republic. That axis right there is very, very important. And then, of course, hitting that area sends the message to everybody, that we can reach you. And, of course, for even the supporters, and that is very, very important. The supporters who have been shielding them, this is a strong message. And you can see that the reactions that are coming out, from that area, you hear some reactions saying that, oh, why Sokoto? Sokoto is quiet, and, but that is not true. We've had this problem for 16 years, and then we've not been able to do it. Somebody has come to help us do it, and then, of course, people are complaining. I think that's misplaced.
Okay, well, Doctor, we have other guests joining us now. I'd like to introduce them. We have joining us journalist Abubakar Ismail Kankara, who is in Sokoto, if I'm not mistaken. You're welcome, Ismail. Thank you very much for joining us. And I am being told that we also have Alexander von Rugen, expert when it comes to geopolitics, also joining us. Welcome, gentlemen. I think we have a very fine dais now. So let me first start with you, Alexander. Thank you for joining us. And I'm wondering what you think about the implications regionally here when it comes to these strikes, as they are so close to the Sahel belt. I had earlier asked Dr. Amakri about this. So do you think that these strikes are going to stop these terrorist activities? Do you think that they are going to drive them away from their locations? If that happens, does it drive them way deeper into the Sahel region, or does it drive them way into or downward into the Nigerian system? Depending on each of these, how do these communities react? On one side, Nigeria, we've been battling these issues. And on the other side, these Sahel states, they're not just going to sit down and watch these communities or these bodies walk into their borders. Mm-hmm. What do you think will happen, Alexander?
Well, I think the initial reaction is like rats fleeing an inflamed nest. They go in every direction that they can. They take the route of least resistance. As my colleague indicated, the attack in the Sahel, in Sokoto, because of its proximity to the Sahel, sends a real big message. This is not the state that most of the atrocities were happening. Borno State was on the opposite side of your country. That was where, if we want to talk Christian atrocities, where most of them were happening. This message was political. And we know the problem. I mean, if we look at the group that was involved here, it was the La Kurawa group, which is from the French name recruits. They're not Nigerian. They're from the Sahel, Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and also from Algeria. Okay? The implication of their name, recruits, means there's an organized effort to destabilize Nigeria. It's a sovereign threat to your country. So it was a very strategic strike. And if they disperse, it's a knee-jerk reaction to the attack. If they see there's no more attacks, and if they see the pressure is now off, they're going to return to normal. This is the first of many, as far as strategy goes. The reason it took so long, we have to also look at that. There was surveillance coming in from Ghana over private contractors for the American military, surveilled the area, got intel, identified where the leaders were, in particular, Bello, I think it was Bello Turgi, who was hit in the attack and deceased now. That was a major victory, because the plan was to cut off the head of the snake, go for the leadership. This plan we've seen happen before. It happened in Yemen with the Houthis. It's a famous Israeli tactic when they went after all of the Iranian scientists and generals in the country. Okay? If you want to stop something from escalating, cut off the head of the snake. So I believe the rats have fled the nest now. Maybe some of them have gone into the Sahel. Perhaps this could be a catalyst to a new formed alliance with the Sahel nations, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, which also are afflicted by the same insurgencies. Now, there's disruption in the ECOWAS group, but as they say in the art of war, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And perhaps this will help reunite the Sahel nations with Nigeria in fighting a common enemy. I would hope politics doesn't get in the way of common sense.
That's a very good one. I'd like to come to you, Mr. Kankara Abubakar. You've been covering security issues in the Northwest. What have communities in Sokoto been dealing with before these airstrikes? Can you give us some intel?
Thank you very much. I think when we talk about what has been happening to Sokoto and its environs, I think it's purely banditry. It started from the farmer-herded clashes, and then it escalates to banditry, which further root the ethnic clash between the Hausa majority and the Fulanis. Then recently we've seen incidents of the Laukurawas and the Ansaru, who allies of the Boko Haram. But in Sokoto case, you find out that there are very few. They station themselves in the neighboring Zamfara state, where the forest of Sabon Birni becomes, I think, their most hostile place, where they do hide and seek to go and launch attack on the innocent civilians, irrespective of their culture, irrespective of their religion. It becomes one of the most criminal enterprise. They extort citizens by imposing levy on them, and then they kidnap people for ransom, and they rustle their animals, most especially their cows, and then they kill indiscriminately by stopping people on the road, they kill some and then kidnap some. So I think this has been the major issues, and then in some instances, you find out that even the security, the military and the police, most especially the vigilantes, are among the victims of these terrorist groups. So I think this is one of the most situations in Sokoto, but although in Sokoto is at the minimal, we can compare what is happening in Katsina and in Zamfara than the Sokoto State, which after this airstrike has brought up a lot of questions. Why hitting the police that has never even been experiencing such kind of attacks or atrocities of these terrorists. I think this is the situation before the airstrike in Sokoto State.
Kankara, thank you very much for that. I mean, you've just highlighted something that I'm going to further go on into asking Dr. Amakri about. But what are residents describing the situation as? We've heard news about fear, confusion. They don't even know exactly what's happening with these strikes. They're just experiencing bombardments. There seems to be a lack of communication with the communities that are involved. That's on one side. But what is it turning, or what is it making the residents do? Are they still confused, or do they have hope? Just a second, Doctor. Doctor, just a second. That question was for Abubakar.
Oh.
Yes, please. Abubakar, I want to know what the residents are feeling like now. Does it seem like hope has come, or do they still have fear, anxiety?
Actually, the residents, not only people from Sokoto State, I can tell you the whole majority, or let me call them the whole Hausa and the Fulani settlers in the northern Nigeria, are now scared of fear of the unknown, because what they see, because from the comment of Donald Trump, who sees to say he is going to rescue Christians, lots of people have question and doubt. Is he truly coming to salvage the Christian, or is he coming to attack the Muslim? But what is important is we know this airstrike may target the terrorists, which is a welcome development, but the communities, because I have visited this community and I've seen how a lot of them have started packing their loot, meaning they will also be victims of illegal, they will also be victims of displacement. So such kind of things have actually imposed fears on residents. On the other hand, the bandits are coming to kill, and the airstrike is also coming. Who knows where is the next location? Because if you check, this is just few miles away from their homes, which is very disastrous, which has exposed fear on them. I have witnessed, in fact, some of them, when I visited the community, have begged me if I can help to accommodate some of their children outskirts the town, because they were thinking their life is gone, because this is not normal. This is all like what it has happened, because some of them thought it was an even air crash. When they rushed to the scene, they found out that it was explosive devices. And in fact, what even prompted more question is how the place is been cleared. All some of the scavengers pick up some of the remnants of the bomb, and the military as well took some, as alleged by the resident. So why is the government hiding things, and why is the government not informing them? Is also an alarming, which I think impose fear not only on Sokoto, but people in Niger, people in Zamfara, people in Katsina. Because of course, if at all this attack hits places like Binyungwari, places like Sabon Bini, and then places like Eda Sabwa, so we know, yes, they're truly targeting the terrorists, or like take Sambisa Forest. But no, it's targeted residents, it targeted communities, and then it falls in people's farm closer to their homes. So I think a lot has more question, and a lot have more fear to live in the communities that they have been living for quite a long time. I think this is the situation. People don't even know where to run to. People don't know who to help them.
Alexander, I'd like to come to you, especially because of the last statement that you made about politics not clouding our wisdom or ability to reason. I think it's quite a no-brainer that when President Donald Trump rather, made the decision to go ahead and execute the airstrikes, one would say that there was a clear message that was being sent outside of it being a Christmas present. It would look like a clear message was sent. And the reason why I'm bringing this question to you is because you strike me as someone that is very big on partnerships in Africa, and you made mention of that right now. But my question is, what does a partnership look like with the Sahel region, taking into consideration that many of the countries that the Sahel, I'll include Mali, Burkina Faso, seem to be breaking away from the countries that Nigeria looks like they are partnering with. Example, this is France and as well as the United States.
Well, it isn't really breaking away from the States. The Americans had one base in Niger, and it was a drone base. Americans are not colonialists as far as Africa is concerned. The French have a very tattered history in Africa and globally as colonialists. And rather than bash them, I mean, objectively, they've got a very poor history. The CFA franc takes advantage of African countries. Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger and Chad have all moved away from the French connection, so to speak. Ironically, Nigeria allied with France, had made an announcement about it to work in conjunction in solving this problem. I think that was more a defensive action out of fear that America might come in, guns a-blazing on the ground. Let's be real about that. That wouldn't have happened without a UN resolution or without an invitation from Nigeria. Because of the three countries in the Sahel having gone through military coups in the last year, ECOWAS's policy is not to recognize a non-diplomatically duly elected government. So it forced a division in the ECOWAS community. I think what we have to look at, if it takes an authoritarian to solve a problem that's best for its people, then choose the authoritarian. Sometimes democracy, if we want to end up with democracy, that's the end game. But to get there, sometimes it takes an authoritarian rule to get the bad apples out of the country. So this is what I'm talking about, putting politics aside. You've got three military leaders in an area that's plagued by the same problem that Nigeria has. Wouldn't it make sense to at least form some association and work out a deal to work together, at the same time respecting each other's sovereignty in the area? But it doesn't make any sense to drive terrorists out of Nigeria to cross the border into Niger or Burkina Faso, regroup, only to come back and fight stronger another day. That's what they're asking for. They'd love to have a ceasefire. That's a euphemism for we need time to regroup and rearm and reorganize so that you won't be able to bomb us again. We're going to figure out a better way to hide, a better tactic to avoid the Americans. It's called guerrilla warfare.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, guerrilla warfare. I'm coming to that. Thank you for bringing that up. My question is to Dr. Makri, and I think also to you, Alexander, but I'll let Dr. Makri go first. I'm wondering whether deeper U.S. involvement in Sokoto, and let's just say generally the Sahel right now, is not going to provoke more alignment by these military juntas, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who seem to be fraternizing with Russia. So isn't this going to make Nigeria or the region a proxy ground for a proxy war between America and Russia? And that has been my concern since the start of this U.S.-Nigeria partnership. What do you think, Dr. Makri?
Yes, you're right. A lot of people are worried about that because they feel that, they don't want Africa generally to be the battleground for the superpowers because they're all coming in for one thing or the other. Their national interests are different, either economic or political or, geopolitical influence. So, yes, it could be something that is of concern where you have to think seriously. And that's why the relationship between that of Nigeria and the United States, I think is well thought out because when President Trump declared Nigeria as a country of particular concern and then later said that he was coming into Nigeria guns blazing, a lot of people were very worried. Why should he do that? Nigeria is a sovereign country. And he can't do that. And of course, the government moved very fast, where they pushed back on that narrative, and then, of course, moved to Washington with a delegation, and then, of course, talked to the right people, came back, and then, of course, the United States reciprocated by sending another delegation to Nigeria where, they all agreed. And, of course, they saw a common ground, and that common ground was how to attack the terrorists. And, of course, like I mentioned earlier, one of the major national interests of the United States is fighting terrorism wherever in the world where it happens. So they were interested. And then, of course, you saw what happened with the ISR flights. And then, of course, the recent strike in Sokoto State. And then, of course, there's more to come because they've started mapping Maiduguri area. And then more strikes will come. So I think it's also giving out the warning that, it's not going to be business as usual with these guys.
Alexander, your take on Proxy battleground?
It doesn't like the fact that Russia is currently assisting in the Sahel, but keep in mind they're not doing so well. In Mali, they've taken a lot of casualties. Bamako has been cut off from fuel, and it's buckling, and Mali's crying out for help. The Russians came in, but they don't bring in the resources that America does. You don't see any tactical strikes like we have in Sokoto here from the Russians. Americans bring technology. As my colleague pointed out, Trump has been on the record. He doesn't want to invade. He doesn't want to occupy. He wants to be the catalyst to peace. He wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. Now, I think it's silly that he's using the Christian genocide rhetoric. That's my opinion, because it's caused confusion in a secular country like Nigeria. But if you look at what's gotten us to this point, and the reason America has allowed itself to come in, the nation of particular concern, that title is awarded to countries that have religious issues within the country. And if there's atrocities of any singular group, Trump's constituents, a strong voting power in America are the right-wing Christians. So he's using this as a good justification in America to come into Nigeria. Otherwise, why is he there? Why is America in Africa? Mm-hmm. Okay, so that opened the door for him. He made a threat. He got everybody's attention. Certainly your president and your people. Everybody was in angst of the Americans marching in. Okay, there's mixed emotions here. Now, people have to be the voice of reason. I think Nigeria needs a national campaign to educate their people what's actually going on. Now, at the same time, there's a lack of transparency on some of these actions because, unfortunately, there's a lot of inherent corruption in Nigeria. I'll give you an example. The execution of your brigadier general in Borno Strait last month. He was attacked. He was shot. He survived. He went into the forest to hide, and the terrorist group somehow got his GPS information off his communicator, his telephone. Now, did that come because the terrorists are that technologically refined to be able to do GPS locates? Or is somebody in Abuja or someone in the military informing them? Mm-hmm. I mean, that truth will hopefully surface, but we don't hear too much about what happened to the assassination of a brigadier general in Nigeria. That must have been very humiliating for the military and actually would have destroyed a lot of morale, high-ranking officials. I believe this strike and the way it's happening and the cooperation with the Nigerian government is boosting the morale of your own military. And keep in mind, it's what's not being said here that is also happening. You're boosting your police force by 20,000. You're boosting your military by 24,000. That kind of slips through the cracks, but Americans are training them in Nigeria to be more effective in your own country. I mean, that is true assistance. That's not an invasion.
Oh, that's thanks for the reminder. That's actually something positive to look forward to.
I'd like to go to you, Mr. Kankara. There was a undetonated missile that, of course, landed in Sokoto. My question for you, of course, with all the fear and emotion that is being raised there, how is that particular incident being handled at this moment?
How is that what? Sorry?
So my question to you was, I know that there were reports that an undetonated missile also landed in Sokoto. And of course, with what you have just said about the fear and the anxiety that is raging around residents of Sokoto State, how is that particular incident being handled?
I think the National Orientation Agency should come because a lot of Nigerians need to be informed. It's only when they are informed they stop hiding information and stop acting like they know everything. They should consult the locals. They should actually make points and clarifications to yes, this is not a pure attack or clear attack on particular people. Is attacks to eliminate the terrorists and to stabilize or to bring peace in the country. So I think what is most important is the government should engage the locals, such like both the traditional and religious institutions, so that to make the wider awareness on issues on ground, on the importance of locals collaborations, the importance of giving out, feeding the government and the other security agencies the right information to know exactly where to attack and then to know when to end these menace that has been consuming people's and their lives and their properties as well. So I think the government is responsible to make some clarifications to citizens so that the fears will go down and then normalcy will return while the terrorists are being attacked.
All right, thank you, Kankara. Final question, Dr. Makri, it's going to come to you. 16 missiles were fired off the coast of Guinea. We've only heard particularly about 3. Out of those 3, one of them was undetonated. In these kinds of cases, especially when it has to do with American technology, what happens? Does Nigeria have the technology to keep that missile undetonated or at least diffuse it? Tell us exactly what happens in when these kinds of matters happen.
You said 16, of course. 16, missiles, precision missiles were fired and conveyed by MQ-9 Reaper. That's a Reaper drone, which is a Predator drone, and then, of course, some Tomahawks were even fired besides the 16, But remember, we said it's right in the burning forest. That was the target that, this happened. The ones that you saw were just wild ones, like the 3 that you saw. Now, taking off from what Kankara was just saying, it is very, very heartbreaking that there's a distance between the Nigerian government and the people. A strong distance, because when things like this happen, we need to get the government to be very, very close, very, very Nigerian government. It is a collaboration. When the Americans are doing their own, we also should do our own, because we need to come very close to the people. And then, of course, inform them, allay their fears, You know, a lot of public communication is required here. But you stay away, and then, of course, the people don't know what is happening, and then, of course, people start building stories and social media, and, of course, people start manufacturing stories. So to control this properly, I think for this one, let's take it as a learning curve. And then after this, when they are going to somewhere else, which they will, we expect that the Ministry of Information or the defense people or police, because when they are doing the war damage assessment, these people have to move in physically to go and, you know, see what happened on the ground. And they should be very, very close in, you know, telling the people what's going on.
Dr. Dennis Amakri, we want to say thank you very much for joining this dais and having this conversation. It's been almost the entire hour, and I think that we have been able to, well, make some clarity on what the situation is. Also, thank you very much, Kankara Abubakar, who is in Sokoto State there. We enjoy your coverage of the incidents and will continue to come to you for more on that. And Alexander Van Rugen, thanks for your geopolitical contributions on this conversation. We always love having you here now, don't we? Gentlemen, thank you. We're going to say to the viewers, do stay tuned because we have the news coming up in just a bit. And one